Pillar of truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jake Red's kicking sport. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network. John, Jack, and Nate. Three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh, yeah. For entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of the Godzilla Wins Saturday Picks Show on this wonderful Saturday morning, March 4th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Jack Fredericks, live from Tunica, Mississippi, and the editor of Godzilla Wins, where we bring your picks and predictions from the NBA to the Bundesliga. I'm here with my esteemed panel of monster predictors. John Fredericks, Nate Perry, Patrick Assalone, and Sheriff David Clarke will be joining us later. We also have a special guest with us today, Vagner Rojas, a retired prize fighter who has brought his expertise inside the octagon to our panel today to break down UFC 285, a huge pay-per-view with multiple titles in contention. But before we get to the action, we need to thank one of our partners here at Ignite 45. Ignite 45, if you're a small business owner struggling to generate leads and revenue, then this message is for you. In today's economy, a winning digital strategy is a must. Without it, your business could fall behind and lose out. Many business owners struggle with outdated websites and no real presence on Google when people are searching for their services. But don't be discouraged. Ignite 45 can fix that. They design great websites that turn visitors into paying customers and create SEO strategies that rank your business on top of search results. Ignite 45 is also the first digital agency dedicated to helping your business reach millions on your social media platform of choice. If you are ready to see results and work with a digital partner that shares your values, then give them a call today at 720-740-1776. That's 720-740-1776, or visit www.ignite45.com/Godzilla. That's www.ignite45.com/Godzilla. Use promo code Godzilla to save $100 on your digital needs. Okay, so today we're going to talk for the first 30 minutes. This is sort of a special edition here of UFC, of the Saturday Pick Show, where we're going to talk about UFC 285. We've got two people who have been inside the octagon and have been able, will give us a really good perspective here on some of the fights. Then we have Nate Perry, who loves to bet on anything, including UFC. So he's got some insight as well. Thank you guys for joining us today. So Patrick, Vagner, Nate, we're going to start with the three sort of some of the undercard fights here. Let's start. This is going to be kind of rapid fire. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes to go through these three fights. Then we can get to the two co-main events, which will have about 20 minutes to do. So let's start with Nickel versus Pickett. Who would like to start us off here?
I'll jump in first. Vagner, good morning. Glad to see you got it updated.
Thank you, guys. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
Bo Nickel, 3-time NCAA national wrestling champion. As probably a good a wrestler as you're ever going to find. You're going to look at his experience. They're going to say it's a 3-0 professional fighting record, fighting his opponent who's got over 15 fights. Do not think for 1 second that this kid is not experienced. He's been fighting and he's been wrestling in front of 10,000 people since he was 7 years old. So this is not really going to bother him. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen when he takes the first stiff shot from Neil, from a guy who's really trying to take his head off. That's really going to be interesting to me. I've seen, and especially earlier in my career when MMA was barely even on the map, and you'd get phenomenal wrestlers. And the first time that they got stuck by some guy who really wanted to hurt them and actually had some lateral movement, it was a big, big problem. I think if Neil tries to sit in front of him, or excuse me, Pickett sits in front of Nickel, it's not going to end well. because that kid is a takedown machine and will just keep dish ragging him up and down for the whole fight.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things about Bo Nickel, right? Is that he is a very decorated wrestler from Penn State trying his hand at MMA. So he is experienced, like Patrick says, but experienced in a different way. Obviously, he wants to get on the mat. Vagner, Nate, what do you guys see here?
You want me to go first?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Wagner, you take over. Yeah.
What I see different in Bo Nickel as a wrestler is that you can see he's kind of already migrated the jiu-jitsu part of the ground game really well. Most wrestlers don't do well with merging the submission part of the grappling into their style. They usually just take people down and they hold them down and they waste a bunch of energy. And you see a lot of wrestlers have a lot of success, but not have that success that makes them world champions. And what I see in Bo Nickel in the couple fights he's had already is that he's already mixed in a very, very solid submission game into his wrestling. And I see something special in this kid, not because he's a really good wrestler, because he's that high level, but because he's already made his jiu-jitsu and wrestling look seamless, like as if it was one, which is very unique for wrestlers. Wrestlers struggle a lot with transitioning from top to bottom on the ground. And in his last fight where he triangled the guy, I don't remember the opponent's name. He made it look like he was like a jiu-jitsu world champion. And to me, that tells me that's a quality of a possible UFC title holder. You know what I mean? Guys like Khabib look like that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
He's definitely, to me, somebody very special. Of course, because of his wrestling pedigree and also the ability that he's already merged the two together in such a short time, which to me takes a long time normally for wrestlers to break those habits.
So a lot of people here like Bo Nickel. He's very popular just all over the place in the internet too, I think, because of his expertise on the mat. Nate, you got anything for this fight before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, just from a gambling perspective, I think that this is pretty chalky, right? We all like Bo Nickel here. He's a minus 2,200 favorite, right? So 2,200 to win 100. So there's not a ton that I think I want to bet on this fight. If I had to bet it, I think you just have to go. I mean, even the under 1.5 rounds is still, you have to lay quite a bit of juice, minus 320. So, but I think that's probably got to be the way to go, right? Bo Nickel's won every fight in basically a minute or less. It seems like no reason why he wouldn't do that again, even though he's taking a little bit step up in class, so to speak. But I think that's probably got to be your perspective if you're betting it, is just think that he probably wins pretty quickly.
Okay, so it looks like everybody likes Bo Nichols. Like Nate says, very chalky fight here. Let's get to one more before we get to our co-main events. Want to make sure we save time for those. Let's look at Matus Gamer Gamrot, 21-2 versus Jalen the Tarantula Turner, 13-5. Let's start with Patrick again. Patrick, what do you see in this fight? What's your angle?
I love Gamrot's style. I think he's really, really good. Using his takedowns off of his own strikes and also following strikes back from his opponent. I think his lateral movement is really good. Really strong guy and deceptively strong in his hands, heavy hands. Sort of like the last fight. If Turner sits in front of him and tries to tee off, he could absolutely hurt the guy. But I see the kid with some pretty phenomenal takedowns and seamless ability to transfer from stand-up striking into a clinch, into takedowns. Again, it's a really hard fight to call because he's fighting a guy who hits really hard and will stand in front of him and has no problem throwing bombs. So it all depends what kind of game he's going to either push on his opponent or allow himself to be pulled into. So we'll see.
Vagner?
Yeah, I've had the ability to train with Gamrot, and he's also just like Bo Nickel, coming from the same camp. They have a very, very solid he has a very solid wrestling pedigree. He's from Poland, if I'm not mistaken, and his jiu-jitsu is also very world class. Competed at the highest level in grappling, so he's a guy who I see kind of similar to Bo Nickal, but not exactly the same, because I think Bo Nickal is even one step up above him. But I think they're going to come in with the same strategy. Good movement, takedown, get their opponent down, and look for the finish.
And from a betting standpoint, Nate, you see anything you like?
From a betting standpoint, it seems like I kind of lean towards Turner. I know that it sounds like you guys like Gamrot, but Gamrot's a pretty big favorite. He's, minus 220. So you figure, the odds are implying that he wins a little bit more than 2/3 of the time. It seems like you have to like a little bit of a live striker if you're getting almost 2-1 on him in Turner at plus 180. So that would be my betting perspective. It seems like, and Turner's just so huge. He's 6'3". It seems like, he can land a live shot on him and hurt him. So I don't hate Turner at almost 2-1 in this fight, just because it seems like he's got sort of a puncher's chance, even though Gamrot's so dominant on the ground.
And that's the thing. You have to kind of look for plus money in some of these undercard fights. Some of them are evenly matched. A lot of times you get quite a bit of chalk, and it could be, hard to try to find the prop or where you can really make some money, because nobody wants to, lay 2,200 to make 100 like in the last fight as well. I mean, that's just from a betting standpoint. If you're trying to bet this UFC stuff, you're trying to find a couple guys before you get to the co-main events, a couple guys in the undercard that you feel like maybe can pull the upset and offer some value at plus money. So Nate is saying that's possibly the case there. Okay, let's move. Actually, before we move, Patrick, why don't you tell us about target trading real quick, and then we'll get to our co-main events.
Well, target trading, we were 25 wins, 5 losses, and 4 break evens yesterday. So I'm still waiting for that commercial, Jack, where you're going to make money with me all week and then lose it all on the weekend betting. So we're waiting for that one. Essentially, what I do is I teach people how to trade their own money. You don't need a financial advisor to do this. You don't need a high school education. Don't need a college education. I've got many students from the John Fredericks show who actually we had gotten their advertising, who are now live traders and are doing very well with full-time jobs, and they're thrilled to death. We're going to have them on your dad's show a couple weeks.
Great, thank you. Yeah, maybe that commercial will come soon. First, I have to have a little bit of capital, which I did win a bet the other day though, so probably the first one I've won in 2 or 3 months, but I was really proud of myself for finding finally a game that I've won. So let's talk now about our co-main event. This is UFC flyweight champion Valentina Schevenko, 23-3 versus Alexa Grasso, 15-3. Kind of an interesting co-main event because Grasso, especially for the title fight, because Grasso is like number 6 in this class. And then a lot of people though don't feel like Schevenko should be number 1 in this weight class. A lot of people look at her fight with Taila Santos as kind of one that maybe is questionable as far as her wins go. So let's start again. We'll just go around here. Patrick, Vagner, our fighters. We've got about 7 minutes here to talk about this too. Patrick, what do you see in the Grasso Schevenko fight?
Well, people can always talk about questionable decisions because Schevenko, you could say, beat Amanda Nunes, and it's everybody's opinion. Everybody's got one. What do I know about her? She's a freaking buzzsaw standing up. She's got a fantastic all-around game. I'd probably say because of John Jones being 248 pounds, I've never seen a human being or him that big before. She's probably the best fighter on the card. That's my opinion. She's intense and she's built to fight. She can fight anywhere, stand up ground and out. She can hit you with an axe kick, which is almost unheard of in MMA, and has no fear of throwing it because she doesn't care where she's going to end up. So I love that kind of style. I'm going with Schevenko 100%.
Okay, so Patrick likes Schevenko. Vagner, I kind of want to take this in a different direction. I just want to ask you a question just as a fighter. If you're Alexa Grasso and you're not the favorite here, you're going into a major co-main event title fight, what's your mentality? How do you prepare for something like this?
You got to come in aggressive. You know, I think for Grasso, she's got good boxing, and she just needs to step on the gas moving forward. And in her mind, she needs to not think of whether she's a favorite or the underdog, or she just needs to have that mentality where she's in there to bring Schevenko into a fight that she's not ready, like a dog fight. You know what I mean? I think the only way to beat a person like Schevenko or John Jones, these guys that are, you know, these people that are basically seamlessly have no holes in their game, is to make them uncomfortable. Is to make them so uncomfortable that they're not, you know, this is not what they trained for. And I think people sometimes go into these fights with these athletes that are complete, and they go in there and they're like almost dancing with them, sparring with them, and that's the wrong thing you want to do. You know, like Amanda Nunes got beat when she got beat by what's her face? I'm sorry, split the name. She the fight ended up becoming a dog fight, you know. And then when the rematch came, it was more like a sparring match again, you know. To win against an athlete of that caliber that is so complete, you have to make it just ruthlessly bloody and mean, and just something that they're you know, they're champions. These guys have been champions for a long time. They're not used to that, you know, real fight, you know, a real fight. Not a When I look at some of these fights nowadays, I see sparring matches. I see people going in there trying to win points and rounds, and I don't see that like beat down Robbie Lawler, Roy McDonald kind of fight. You know what I mean? You want one of those for you to become, you know, to take a title away from a champion. So for Grasso to win today, it's the only way I see it is her coming in there and using her boxing and just pressing her and making it a slug fight. You know what I mean? Because everywhere else she's going to lose the fight. You know, if she tries to go in there and spar, she's going to lose. You know, and that's I don't see her winning tonight though. So
Yeah. Okay. So Vagner also likes Schevenko. Patrick, I saw you vigorously nodding your head when Vagner said he sees a lot of sparring matches nowadays. What can you just explain to our audience kind of the difference between a sparring match and we're talking like a knockdown, drag out fight?
Well, this is also coming from two generations, because I had come up before Vagner, and Vagner and I fought very, very similarly. We made it physical. We made it brutal, because exactly what the guy is saying. Vagner did not get to where he is without doing what he does. He makes people uncomfortable. It's horrible. The first time I rolled with him, when I had gone to his gym, he grabbed my wrist. I hadn't felt anything like that in decades. And when you feel that kind of heat, you know you're in something. To take a title away from a champion, you've got to beat them up. You cannot leave it to a judge. You have got to finish them. And the only way you're ever going to do it is by going after them and trying to take their head off. What he means by sparring is these guys are fighting not to lose now. And when you fight not to lose, you're going to lose. There's no doubt in my mind you cannot win.
it's true.
Nate, do you see anything from a betting perspective you like? Is there any way Grasso can make us a little money?
I think that from a betting perspective, again, this is a pretty chalky one, right? Schevenko's minus 800. We're not giving a ton of, belief to Grasso. I think that to speak to Wagner's point, I think that you have to expect Grasso to go out really aggressive, right? If she wants to win, she has to be aggressive. She has to push it. Schevenko's shown very little reluctance to really get after it and mix it up with opponents that are aggressive. So I think from a betting perspective, you have to look at maybe under 4.5 rounds. This fight doesn't go the distance. These fighters are just going to get after it and really be aggressive with each other. And you figure something's going to happen. This fight won't go to a decision. So I think that from a betting perspective, Schevenko's minus 800. We don't love that, but maybe minus 150-ish, depending on where your book is, for under 4.5 rounds feels okay to me.
That's a good strategy, especially when you have a favorite, such a chalky favorite like Schevenko, because like our fighters are saying here, in order for Grasso to even be competitive, she's going to need to be aggressive early, and she's going to have to make Schevenko uncomfortable and dominate the first couple of rounds. I don't think with this heavy favorite, there's any way where if Grasso takes it the distance and we go to the judges, there's no way she wins unless we have some sort of massive surprise. So she's got to be thinking, I got to get a submission early. That's the only way I can win this title fight. And so if you think that Grasso has even a remote chance that, but then again, Nate, I mean, if you think Grasso can do that, then you might as well just take the plus money, throw a couple bucks on it. So kind of difficult to say, but I think we all like Schevenko here. I don't think Grasso's ready for this fight, and I don't think it's what the UFC had hoped for when they envisioned a title fight right now. But, you know, we'll see. Stranger things have happened in the UFC for sure. Okay, let's get to our main event, one of the biggest fights of the year, Jon Jones versus Ciryl Gane. The return of Jon Jones after 3 years. He's moving up to the heavyweight division here, so he's put on quite a bit of weight, actually. It's been a while since he's fought. Considered the greatest fighter of all time, I think, by most people. So let's start here with Patrick. Patrick, what do you like in the Jon Jones fight?
Strange that we're doing a Jon Jones fight, because I was at his fight against Chael Sonnen in New Jersey when a company was actually bringing me in to do this exact same job for their odds laying company. And unfortunately, about 4 days later, the people that were behind it got arrested for kidnapping. So that kind of went out the window. I know me and Jon Jones got some stories here. He's 248 pounds. He's massive. I'm positive with their training acumen. I'm sure they have fought five-round simulations at this weight. I can't imagine that they haven't. He's had an awful lot of time to rest and acclimate to this weight. So that's something. There's also another thing that I'd like to bring up, that Jon Jones was a world champion in MMA, the UFC, 7 years before Ciryl Gane even tried MMA. So there's a tremendous discrepancy in experience as far as the MMA game. Is Gane a great striker? Yeah, he is. Jones is a phenomenal athlete. I don't know how much better of a striker Gane is than Jones, but at 248 pounds, this is the big wild card, and I don't know what's going to happen with someone that large.
Is there a scenario, Vagner, where Jones just can't go the distance because of his weight? Like, can y'all talk about what it's like to put on that type of weight? And even in a simulation, I'm sure if you're running those 5-round simulations, it can't be the same as when you step in for a title fight. We all know Jon Jones is going to be mentally prepared, but is his body, what is it like, I guess, is my question, to move up in a weight class and then fight such a huge fight? Is cardio a concern? Because that's what I read all the time. Oh, well, maybe it's cardio, but I mean, is it really a concern when it comes to Jon Jones?
There's a lot of concerns around Jon's weight gain. When I look at him, in the pictures, I see a 205er who looks fat. He didn't look to me like Gane looked when he took his shirt off. I looked at it, I said, wow, there's a clear difference in muscle definition. Not to say that muscle makes any difference, right? But there's a clear difference there. Yes, and weight gaining does add that element of, you're going to breathe heavier. You're going to have to carry more weight around. You got to deal with that body. The real question is how much simulation and how much did Jon put in behind this camp to make sure that he has the 5 rounds in him and has a physical 5 rounds in him, a physical 5 rounds that he's never done before. Something he had to literally prepared for the worst case scenario. And I think, I think Gane is actually more of a harder fight for him than maybe Francis Ngannou would have been, because Gane moves around a lot. He's all over the ring. He's bouncing on his toes. He's in and out. To catch a guy like that in the fight, especially if he's planning on going in there and trying to wrestle a man like that, it's a lot of work, and if he comes in with the mentality of like, I'm going to take this guy down, I'm going to hold him down, and I'm going to sub him, or I'm going to take him down and I'm going to finish him on the ground. And his cardio, let's say he gets 1, 2, maybe 3 takedowns, and he loses control of those takedowns, and this big man gets back up to his feet and he can't get him back down. I could see this becoming a very bad night for John Jones.
That's interesting.
This is one of those fights that I've actually met John Jones several times. He's a really good guy. In my heart, I want to pick him, but the layoff, his whole career, this person who I've felt has always been very, very, very good, but very, very inconsistent. It's concerning. If I were betting money, I would take Gane tonight, which I know a lot of people are going to say, no way. Like, yeah, I just, it's too long of a layoff. I don't know what kind of person is coming into the cage. We don't know what man is prepared for this fight. And I think he has all the skills in the world to win. If I were, in John Jones's mind, it would be easy, a landslide win, but we've seen John Jones fight fights without even having camps and being on cocaine. So, like I said, who knows who's showing up tonight? You know what I mean? He's the greatest of all time. This win or loss won't take that away from him for what he's done in his career. But I see this becoming a real test for him. Probably the hardest test he's ever had. So, and when you saw his last couple fights before he vanquished the title, it was always like super close. Like he let these fights get closer than they ever needed to be. So,
okay, I want to talk about those 3 fights really quickly. So a lot of people say it's either that he was unmotivated or that he's losing his step. Do you guys feel like it's a combination of both? Or because a lot of people will defend Jones and say he was just bored. Last 3 fights, they go to decision. He knew he was going to win. Do you guys feel like he just wasn't motivated in ways he might be motivated tonight? Or is he losing his step because he's getting older?
I defer to Vagner on this.
I think it was unmotivation. I don't think he was losing a step. But unmotivation could lead to losing a step. Think about it. If you're unmotivated to train, you're unmotivated to win, you're unmotivated to become the best version of you, that will lead you in the same cycle of being, losing a step. Because as an athlete, there's only one way you stay on top, is if you work harder than everybody else. No matter how talented you are, if you could be the most talented guy, hard work always wins, So if you're unmotivated and you're not working hard, you're going to lose a step. So I think it's more the unmotivated and losing a step. And, how old is John Jones? Does anybody know that stat there? Because I don't.
I believe he's 35. Nate,
Okay.
do you know?
He's 35.
Yeah, 35 is
that's
old.
right.
I think 35 is a man's prime. I think he, maturity wise, physical wise, I think he's, tonight will be the real test for us to see if the greatest of all time becomes, who cements this legacy forever, where there's no question of it. If he goes in there and just wins this fight with ease, then we'll have to just, bow our heads and be like, yep, this man is what
Absolutely.
he is.
Nate, very quickly, looks like Vagner likes Cyril Gane. Patrick, you like John Jones?
I'm
Toss up.
exactly with Vagner. I have no idea what's going to happen because let me tell you something. At 35 years old, his physical prime, he sure didn't look like it in the weigh-in yesterday.
He didn't look
Yeah,
good.
for real.
He looked like a fat 205er.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Off season. Yep.
Absolutely. Nate, you got anything here from a betting perspective real quick?
From a betting perspective, I'm inclined to agree with the guys. Gane is plus money. He's plus 150, depending on where you're booking it. That feels like the play with so many unknowns. I think that you have to take the underdog here. We know that Gane can hold his own striking wise. We don't know what John Jones's cardio is going to look like. He's going to need a grapple to win this fight, probably. We don't know if it's going to tire him out, like Vagner was saying. I think that and I think there's a fair argument to be made that John Jones hasn't felt power from like a real heavyweight before, like Cyril Gane is. So that could change things too. So I think that you got to take Gane here, who seems to be a more natural heavyweight. Like his frame just holds his 240 whatever better than John Jones's does. So I think Gane's got to be the play as an underdog.
Gane's
Really
moved.
interesting. I expected everybody here to take John Jones. That's really interesting that we're giving you some plus money here. So look, we're all really excited for UFC 285. This is going to be a huge card. These are a lot of major titles, title contenders here. There's also a lot in the prelims that look really interesting. You can go to GodzillaWins.com. We always put out at least 3 articles on every UFC fight. We've got money line bets for you, main event predictions, some prop bets for the main event as well. So please go to GodzillaWins.com to check those out. I want to thank our esteemed panel for the first 30-minute segment here of UFC 285. That was some really great analysis. We're going to go to a quick ad break, and when we come back, we're going to talk some baseball new rules, some Cowboys as always, and a ton of college hoops, tournament previews, some picks. We got it all for you. We are gearing up for March Madness here. Right after a quick word from our sponsor.
You're on Godzilla Wins. This is our weekly edition. Had boxing for the first half hour. Patrick and team did a great job with Jack. I'm John Fredericks, and I'm going to be your host for this next hour of Godzilla Wins. A lot of background noise. Obviously, we're at CPAC doing this. A lot of politicians coming over, and I'm saying, if you can't give me the winner of the semifinal conference game in the SoCal, you're not coming on. So I've shunned them all away here, as we're going to focus on sports. I love our panel today. Sheriff David Clarke with us, Patrick Assalone, of course, my son Jack, who's the executive producer of the show, Michael Coleman running the board, of course, Nate Perry in Reno, and of course, Jack runs our website. Go to GodzillaWins.com, GodzillaWins.com, and you're going to get your winners there every day. When we get to the end of basketball now, I'm going to give you a pick every single day. Every day you're going to get a pick from me. I got a feeling I'm going to get hot. It's coming. So you got to go to GodzillaWins.com every day so I can blow out the field and these losers that I'm trying to compete with on that website. So I got to shame them all. So stick with me. This segment brought to you by our great friends at Colonial Downs and Rosie's. Go to rosiesgaming.com. Jackpots over almost $500 million given away. Rosie's on fire. Besides, horse racing starts there. Get this, Patrick Assalone, July 13th through September 9th, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, every 3 days, afternoon, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, post time, 1:30 p.m. Of course, we got a suite there. We're never going to miss that. This is starting July 13th. But in the meantime, go to rosiesgaming.com. You're going to have so much fun there. Ann just went the other day to Hampton on our way up here. We had such a good time. My favorite in New Kent, but you got New Kent, you got Richmond right by our studio, Hampton, which is awesome. You've got Collinsville outside of Danville, Dumfries in Northern Virginia. Go to rosiesgaming.com. Rosiesgaming.com for you guys out there. The food is great. It's so much fun. Take your significant other, and like me, you just might get lucky twice. Go to rosiesgaming.com. Now, I got to get to these baseball rules, folks, before we get in to basketball and everything else. I'm just going to open this up. I am hot. I am sick and tired of the empty suits at MLB. These are kids that graduated from MIT or Yale, Ivy League, whatever, with, degrees in statistics, whoever these kids are, pimply-faced little weasels that couldn't hack it in T-ball. Right? They never even got to the little league level. They can't play the game. They don't understand it, but they got all the statistics and they go on TikTok or whatever else nonsense they do. They're destroying the game. These rules changes in the MLB, you got to be freaking kidding me. First of all, they're sticking with this COVID guy on second base in extra innings. That's like, they don't even do that in college. They don't even do that in high school. This is like little league ball when you're 10 years old. Now, let's put a runner on second base, because the game might go on too long and people might get bored and it's too tough for the pitchers. So let's put a guy on second base. That's like little league nonsense. That was supposed to be there for COVID, right? But now that extends it out because it shortens the game. Because in their view, right, in their view, people are too stupid to sit there and understand how the game goes, right? That's number one. That pisses me off. Let me tell you the other thing. I'm fired up here, right? They're trying to sanitize the game. They're trying to shorten it and sanitize it because they don't understand it because they never played it. Now, here's the other thing that these pimply-faced MIT suits are doing, right? What is this pitching clock? What the hell is that? right? What you got to look over your shoulder now to see how many times you have to rub up the baseball or to get the signs? What is that? Now there's a batting clock. What do you mean a batting clock? You want to step out? You want to put gloves on? No, there's a batting clock. Play the game. You want to rub dirt in your hands? You want to put gloves on, adjust your gloves? Come on, man. Pitching clock, batting clock. Then the other thing they want to do is take all the uniqueness out of pitchers. So now they're saying, oh, you can't turn your back, you can't rock, you can't do this, you can't do that. So they want to take the uniqueness out of pitching. If you did that, there'd be no Mark Friedrich. Remember him, right? Talking to the baseball, out. There'd be no Louis Tiant. Remember him? Turns his back to the batter, comes back and pitches, out. There'd be no sudden Sam McDowell, who stared you down for 30 seconds on a 3-2 pitch because a 100-mile-an-hour fastball was coming and he tried to intimidate you. That's gone. My pitcher on the Astros, Luis Garcia, he rocks back and forth. That's what he does. That's gone. So now they want to sanitize everything, shorten the game by 18 seconds. It's the biggest punch ball. Then they got this other thing where you can only have 2 pickoff throws to first base. So basically you get 1, because if you do the second one and the guy gets back and he's safe, it's an automatic steal because he can have any lead that he wants, right? This is destroying baseball. Rules made by kids from MIT that never played the game and don't understand the intricacies of it. Look, the shift, I don't care about the shift. Okay, you got 9 players. You want to put 4 in the outfield, 6. The hell do I care? It's up to the batter to figure out how to beat that. So I don't like that either. I don't like to say, oh, now they got to increase the size of the bases by 3 inches, right? So we can have more people on base, right? Close call, you're safe. More steals, right? Because you got the extra 3 inches. All this stuff is absolute. Now, then they balance the schedule, right? So they're trying to make it into NHL hockey, where like their conferences don't matter. It's top 6 teams. You're in a conference. You're supposed to play those teams. That's the idea of conference play. That's out. I mean, these people are destroying the game. Having said that, the whole thing is stupid. It's driving me nuts. But having said that, guess what? MLB is going to adapt. MLB is going to adapt. The games are going to be still pretty good. But I hate these rules, and I'm sick of these suits at the MLB destroying my game. I'm done.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Quite a lot of thoughts, Dad. I think one thing I'll say, because I've been listening to Dad give these rants now for like 7 months, is in order for him to justify his position, he has to make up this thing that nobody who made these decisions played the sport, which I doubt is true. You don't remember when you said the coach of the Dolphins never played football. You said that for months.
Oh, he played wide receiver at an Ivy League school. He was a walk-on. Come on, that's not real football. Oh, I was a wide receiver at Yale. I played like 3 plays a game when I was getting beat 52-7. Come on, man. Yeah, but give me some real football. Give me somebody in the SEC, the ACC. Give me somebody in the Big Ten, right? Ohio State. Don't give me. And I played wide receiver at Yale, and now I've got this little iPad computer thing I do, and everybody's so impressed with my analytics. You know what? They got bounced in the playoffs. The guy's overrated, right? Give me a Mike Vrabel. Give me a Mike McCarthy. We're going to get into that too. I love Mike McCarthy. I'm like a Mike McCarthy fan now, where he says, "Hey, my offensive coordinator sucks."
Let's just stick with baseball for a minute. We don't need to go on to the Dolphins. That was my fault. I shouldn't have brought that up. So here's my question, Dad. All these complaints you have about the sport on opening day, are you going to watch it?
Yes.
Okay.
So are you still going to watch 140 Astros games a year?
I'm going to watch it. Mom and I are going to the Astros home opener. Yes.
Of course.
And because of the pitch clock, you can get out there at a reasonable time and go to bed so you can start your day early again. So it's actually, I think, an advantage. One thing about baseball with these new rules is, Dad, you're a diehard baseball fan, but the sport is trying to attract people who don't watch the sport. So the rules aren't for you because you watch the sport regardless of what they change. The rules are for people who don't watch baseball, who think it's boring because it takes forever. And the pitcher throws 100 pickoffs to second base until one goes in the outfield. And there's a minute of excitement after 45 minutes of a pitcher rocking back and forth and throwing to Jose Altuve at second. So they're trying to attract a wider audience. Basketball kills them in the ratings. Football kills them in the ratings. Nobody watches baseball until the postseason. And even then the ratings are difficult because it's just a game that doesn't have a lot of appeal because they play a lot and there's not a lot of superstars. Some teams have no superstars on their team. There's maybe one or two that a casual sports fan could name. Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, whatever. But for the most part, they're trying to attract a wider audience. So, for you, I know you hate the rules, but you're still going to watch. So they don't really care what you think because you're not going anywhere. Okay, so thanks for your thoughts on the Major League Baseball rules change. Let's talk.
Let me make a few comments on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wonderful rant, John. Although I disagree with 80% of it. The game is too slow. It moves too slow. People like action. It's why the NFL has the ratings that they do, college basketball, so on and so forth. Action. There's action, action, action. There are too many lulls in the damn game, especially during the week. It's late at night. Nobody wants to dedicate 4 hours. The game starts at 7. It's almost midnight before you get to bed. If it goes extra inning, I do agree with you on the starting a runner on second base in the extra innings. That's nonsense. However, John, you and I are dinosaurs. They're not worried about us. They're not trying to attract us. They're going after this younger population here. And that's what these rules are about, to quicken the game, to make it more interesting. The reason why even in the playoffs and the World Series, they don't get ratings is because that's when the NFL starts, for heaven's sake. So I'm glad they got rid of that shift. That was stupid. But really the main thing here was for them to speed up the game a little bit. I like the clock.
Yeah, me too. And the one thing Dad's not telling you is that he doesn't make it through a whole game anyway. He falls asleep by the 7th inning. Even if the game's in the afternoon, he's like out by 6 o'clock. There's been so many playoff games where he texts me in the morning and is like, "What happened? I fell asleep." So it's probably better that they speed up the game.
The game puts you to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, like then you'll be able to watch like the Astros in the ALDS without falling asleep at 9 o'clock. So, I think it probably is going to actually benefit your sleep schedule a little bit. Now, we want to get to another topic here that I think some of our panelists might be a little hot. And this is Mike McCarthy's comments on Kellen Moore, their fired offensive coordinator. We've got two Cowboys fanatics here, Sheriff David Clarke and Nate Perry. Let's start with Sheriff Clarke here. Sheriff Clarke, can you explain to our audience, for those who don't know, the comments that McCarthy made, and then your thoughts on this kind of out of character statement for McCarthy to make? He's not really one to do something like this. Coaches don't often throw other coaches under the bus. So I'll let you take it away, Sheriff Clarke.
Yeah, as you know, the NFL has become a 365-day venture. There is no off season. The combine's going on right now in Indianapolis, and Mike McCarthy was interviewed, and he was asked a question. And here's the quote. I'm reading directly from the quote. "I've been where Kellen has been. Kellen wants to light the scoreboard up," McCarthy told reporters at the NFL Combine. Continuing the quote, "But I want to run the damn ball so I can rest my defense. I don't desire to be the number one offense in the league. I want to be the number one team in the league with a number of wins and a championship." When I heard that statement, I said, hallelujah. Finally, we have a coach. Mike McCarthy has finally been given the reins to this organization. Most Cowboy coaches come in, they don't get to pick their own staff. Most of them, the last 3 at least, had to play with somebody else's assistant coaches. So finally, it was McCarthy that brought in Dan Quinn. Sure, it took him 2 swings because he had to fire Nolan, but he brought in a special teams coach, Faso. He finally gets to bring in the offensive coordinator, and he's going to call the plays. I agree with that. Mike McCarthy has won a championship. Mike McCarthy has won a championship calling his own plays. He wants to run the ball. He knows he has a quarterback that cannot put this team on his shoulder and carry it. So he's got to put this quarterback in positions to win. Dak Prescott is most successful when the play action pass is working. The only reason the play action pass can work, or play action, is if you are successfully running the football. One of the things that always happens as the year goes on, especially in the playoffs, what do they say about Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? Keep them on the sidelines. How do you keep these guys on the sidelines? You run the football. You need sustained drives. You don't need to score 40 points to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And you have a defense. You have a defense that can win games, for heaven's sakes. They ran out of gas at the end of the season. They couldn't stop the run. And they gave up. They didn't give up as many points, the defense, but they were on the field a lot in the second half of the season. They were gassed in some of those games. So I'm glad Mike McCarthy said it. I was unimpressed with Kellen Moore. He was unimaginative. The Chargers are going to find out. And again, he was a holdover from a different staff, for heaven's sakes. You know, good. I'm glad he's gone. Adios. Have fun. And San Diego, not San Diego, I'm sorry, the LA Chargers. You will look at that. How many years have they been out of San Diego? We're still calling them the San Diego Chargers. But anyway, good for Mike McCarthy. He didn't throw him under the bus. Mike said, I've been where he's at. Although the difference is Mike has won a championship.
Damn right. Yeah,
Aaron
I agree with
Rodgers.
you 100%. I agree with Sheriff. I'm going to jump in here. I agree with Sheriff. Look, I have nothing. I'm not a Dallas fan, or not a fan, except when they play the Titans. And I'm not a fan. Other than that, they're in a different conference. But I thought McCarthy had to take control of that team, and I think he did that. I think his like Sheriff said, this guy's got Super Bowl rings. Kellen Moore doesn't have squat. And do I think he threw him under the bus? Look, what I think he did is very simple. Hey, the guy sucked, and he's out, and I'm going to change it. So I think he was very candid. And I think if I was a Cowboy fan, I want that level of candor, because the team has been underperforming forever based on their roster. Not like my roster, we overperform because we're horrible, right? They've been underperforming. I think McCarthy had to do that. I gained tremendous respect for him. Tremendous respect, Nate and Sheriff. I think it was the right thing for him to do.
90 seconds was how long it took to mention the Titans in a segment about the Cowboys. That's how long it took before he complimented his coach. My point here, Nate, is
love
that
my coach.
I know. My point here, Nate, is that the coaches just don't do this. NFL coaches protect everyone. They're like a fraternity of bozos in some way. Any guy gets fired, and they're just, like, and McCarthy's kind of vanilla in his comments. So I'm just surprised that he came out and said something like this. Maybe he didn't throw him under the bus, but this is very unusual for a head coach to do, especially one like McCarthy, who never really makes headlines. He just sits around, I guess, watching film and figuring out ways to go 12-4 and losing the first round of the playoffs.
Well,
Nate, what do you think?
Mind, though, Jack, keep in mind too, though, that he's the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. All right, the premier sports organization in the entire world. When you speak, it's like E.F. Hutton. When a Dallas Cowboy coach says something, everybody's listening and everybody's hanging on every word and every sentence, so on and so forth. So it gets magnified. I thought there was much ado about nothing, but I was glad that McCarthy did it.
Nate?
I think it was probably much ado about nothing as well, in that Mike McCarthy's one of the world's most boring people, just in an interview. He says nothing ever. Credit to Kellen Moore for not taking it personally and just being like, great experience in Dallas. Happy to be where I'm at. Credit to Kellen Moore for handling it like a class act that he is. The problem with Mike McCarthy, and what I sort of always go back to, is I remember when the Cowboys hired him, and he had been sitting in his barn, watching film, learning analytics, doing all the right things. And then you see him get on the sideline, and it was pretty clear that he just lied to everybody. He knew none of the analytics. His play calling was exactly the same, and nothing changes. So for him to be like, oh, I just want to run the ball more, like we're still playing the game like it's 30 years in the past, is ridiculous. And I think that some of this is because I think that Mike McCarthy just isn't a very good public speaker. I think that perhaps he was unclear. I mean, the Cowboys ran the ball with the sixth highest frequency in the NFL last year, and they sucked at it. And they were third down constantly. The red zone, horrible. I think that what Mike McCarthy meant to say was, we need to figure out a way to run the ball better, not more. And I think that that's important context, and that's probably just Mike McCarthy being a poor communicator more than anything else. So that's sort of where I'm at with it.
And in fairness to McCarthy, and I'm a big McCarthy fan, he's got 2 back-to-back seasons of 12 wins. All right. That's not a joke. But the thing is, his offensive line last year, if you remember, all of the injuries early on, Mike McCarthy held that team together after he lost his starting quarterback for 5 games with Cooper Rush. Why was Rush successful? They were running the football. They weren't making a lot of yards off of it. The problem I have with Kellen Moore's play calling is, okay, run the football, but it was Zeke Elliott on first down into the middle of the line.
Top
He
button.
can't run between the tackles anymore.
Top button. Yeah.
He can't run between the tackles anymore. So, and here's another thing about Kellen Moore. It's the last thing I'll say about it.
Push the number of cups you want.
He's gotten several interviews for a head coaching job. He was a hot commodity, and guess what? Never got called back to a second interview 2 years in a row. That tells you all you need to know about Kellen Moore.
I don't know if it's totally Kellen Moore's fault that Zeke Elliott was in the offense the way he was. We all knew that Pollard was the better running back there. I mean, maybe the play calling wasn't exactly dynamic with Zeke, but that was 100% Jerry Jones intruding into the organization. So I don't know, but interesting. Sheriff Clarke is defending Mike McCarthy, and then Nate called him a bad public speaker. So two different Cowboy fans.
He might be a bad public speaker, but he's a hell of a coach.
Yeah,
that's what he's hired to do.
He's fine,
right? Yeah, Nate with always the most personal analysis there. Nothing about football, just this guy stinks at public speaking. Patrick, you got something?
Yeah, it's brutal to be the head coach and be saddled with somebody else's baggage, and you got to sit there and just take it. And I think McCarthy was just probably happy that he could start firing people and do stuff the way that he wanted to, because I can tell you, running businesses, I've been saddled with dead weight, and they were protected. And until I couldn't get rid of them, nothing changed. And then when I fire half of them, everybody else stood up and took they took stock of what was going on. It was amazing how things changed. Just quickly how things change when they realize that they're no longer
I agree with
safe.
that.
So
I agree with you, Patrick. I agree with you in running businesses so much. In fact, our little company just went through this about the last quarter. It's like we're going into 23. We're just making changes, and sometimes you got to do that. It's just you get people that get stale. They get there's no innovation, nothing new. You just got to clean house and start over. I mean, that's how companies survive and grow. So I agree with you, man, 100%. You were absolutely spot on.
And we spoke about this, John, and John knows my story. I had a guy working with us that was 30% of our sales, but just became unbearable to be around. Clients didn't want him, making bad calls. So this is in football. You just got to get rid of him. Start fresh. And now McCarthy can take responsibility for everything. And now there's nobody to blame. So he either shows up or he doesn't.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, look, a couple more jobs for Kellen Moore, and Patrick, you can hire him at Target Trading in his second career when he keeps getting fired from all these teams and get thrown under the bus because he's just trying to score 60 points a game or something. Okay, so we're going to talk college hoops for about the last 30 minutes here because there's a lot that we have to get to. We got the big Power 5 conference tournaments coming up. We want to talk about some picks for today. We've got we're really going to pack a lot into this last 30 minutes. So stay tuned for that. Dad, before we do that, can you tell us about Ignite 45?
I tell you what, one of our sponsors here on Godzilla Wins, Ignacio Falco, started this company, Ignite45.com. This is basically a digital website developed company for small businesses. But what I loved about this guy is that him and his wife, his fiance, I should say, they were both in the digital business. They were working for big companies. They made about $250,000 between them, and they just couldn't take it. They just couldn't take the stifleness of it. They went on They went on their own. They opened up their own business called ignite45.com. What is great about it is they've really geared it to small business. You got a lot of small businesses out there. You need your website redone. It's got to get updated. You need SEO help. You need all the things in social media that you really can't do running a business. Look, I do it all the day because we don't have any kind of a social media plan because I'm on the air. I'm selling ads. Like, we got to hire that out because I just don't have time. A lot of small business owners, you don't have time to do all this stuff. So you fall behind. That's what he's geared up to. Go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com, talk to him, and you're going to get $100 off your first order. If you go there right now today, he's giving away a $6,000 website design to one lucky winner on Thursday. If you think, hey, I might need a new website, go to ignite45.com, register to win that, and you're good to go. They're great people, and they're going to work with you. I had him on my show 2 days in a row. He came up here, just the nicest people you'd ever want to meet, and they really want to help you out. So give him a shot. Ignite45.com. Ignacio Falco here to help you and your small business.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dad. So we've got some college hoops previews that we want to do, some tournament previews. We're going to run through these pretty quickly, but if we need to throw out a couple, we can as well. Here's where I want to start. And I'm so excited for this. I'm absolutely locked in. I know Sheriff Clarke's got his Duke hoodie on there. He's ready for the tournament as well. Let's start with the ACC tournament. A lot of people are saying the ACC is down this year. I don't necessarily agree. I think there are a lot of teams that are trending at the right moment, at the right time to make a deep run into the playoffs, into the tournament. But before we get to the tournament, we got to get to through the ACC conference tournament. Sheriff Clarke, I'd like to start with you. Do you think Duke has a shot here? Can they run the table? Are they going to get bounced early? We're talking ACC tournament, not March Madness.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my Duke hoodie on. I see your dad's got his Houston Astros shirt. Nate, I'm sorry, Jack, I got to ask you, what the hell's with that T-shirt? Is that a pig?
Yeah, Lord have mercy. I'll shout out to Bourré in New Orleans is a restaurant I've worked for many, many years. I help them run their business. But yeah, one of our
Okay. I thought maybe you lost
yeah.
I thought you lost a bet, or you got dressed in the dark and you just grabbed the shirt that was nearby, you put it on, and here you are. Anyway, back to the
I love this shirt.
Back to
Well,
the
Jack,
ACC.
the other thing about Jack is, I mean, that backdrop that you have, that is really a professional set you got there. You know, people don't know this, but my son, like, don't put anything into it, Jack. People don't know this, but I'm going to embarrass him. My son Jack he turned 33 on Thursday, so let's give him a big happy birthday, Jack. 33 years old, and if you want to buy him a present, buy him a backdrop. He really needs one,
or a
Happy
picture
birthday, son.
or something. Yeah, you know, my room is like, my whole house is styled like a serial killer. There's just nothing on the walls. It's super clean. It doesn't look lived in. So I mean, I've got some books. I could probably move the camera. I've got like a typewriter in the corner, but I kind of like this.
A typewriter? Who the hell uses a typewriter? Typewriter.
Typewriter.
Conversation piece.
It was.
God.
That's old school.
This show is regressing.
That's old school.
Folks.
Well,
Jack, do you have frames with like the family that came in it from the store? Do you just hang it up? Not even your family.
I do. And then I say, oh, that was, you know, my long lost cousin. You know, there's not much. Yeah. Well, look, that's enough on. Yeah, that's enough on my decorating.
I don't put much stock in these conference tournaments. I think they hurt these teams because these teams, they play hard. You play a number of games in a short period of time. So you go into the tournament gassed with these conference tournaments. I don't really care. I don't really, get all Duke to win the ACC conference tournament. Yeah, it's an automatic bid, but they're going to get in anyway. ACC being down, I think only because North Carolina and Duke, we're used to seeing them in the top 10 all year, and they're not in it right now. I don't even think they're in the top 25, either team. So, guys can get hurt. And if you lose early, guess what? That's more practice time that you have, for heaven's sakes. You can get rested. You can heal up. Duke is coming on strong. Of course, I'm a homer when it comes to Duke, but you know, they're starting to play together. They're starting to understand each other, and they got healthy. All right, with Derek Lively, with Whitehead, and who's the third freshman? You know, they're playing with three freshmen. Oh, the Filipowski. They're playing with three freshmen, for heaven's sakes. So they don't have a lot of experience. Miami's good. When people say the ACC is down, Miami's good. Virginia's in the top 10. They're limping along right now. Pitt is in the top 25, but those aren't big names other than Virginia. So it's time to get ready for the tournament. And I'm looking where Duke is projected to be seeded. Seeding doesn't matter. Look, you got to win 6 games. I don't care where you're seated, where you play. You got to win 6 games. And Duke's projected to be like a 7 seed. Who cares? You got to win 6 games. This team, though, is starting to understand each other. With Jeremy Rocha as the point, they're going to make a little noise. I'm not going to say picking Final Four with them, but I think it'd be an accomplishment to get to the Sweet 16 with playing 3-4 freshmen.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've won 5 in a row. I think you're right about the idea that getting bounced early can actually be helpful. There's not a lot of conference tournament winners who have gone on to win the tournament of 64. I think Kansas did it maybe last year. Kansas was always winning the Big 12. But for the most part, a lot of those teams don't even make this, they don't even make the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, mostly because they're pretty gassed. But Duke's won 5 in a row, and they're trending at the right time. I could see them making a deep run in the ACC tournament. I personally like Miami. I just like Miami for a lot of reasons. From a betting perspective, they're 14-5 against the spread in conference games. So even if they don't win the entire tournament, I still like them with the spread there. They're 18-11 against the spread this season. So most of that has to do with the fact that they've overperformed. So they've been underdogs at times, but they don't have a ton of experience on neutral site, but they're extremely good away from Miami when they're on the road, and a neutral site can act like a road game more than a home game. I've coached those neutral site games, and depending on the crowd, it doesn't feel like a home game. With a home game, you have the comfort of your rim and your gym and the size of it, the colors, all that stuff. So they play incredibly well on the road. I really like Miami for the ACC. They play team basketball. So, but they're also favorites. So from a betting perspective, if you're taking them, you're going to lay some juice there. Nate, you got anything on the ACC before we move to the SEC?
I think that you guys make some good points. The ACC is compelling to me just because I think that we're not sure who's going to get in yet. I think the Duke's probably a lock, Miami's a lock, and Virginia, but a lot of the rest, like basically every other team, every other, the other 12 teams in the conference, they're sort of, right there in terms of like kind of being fringy. Even Pittsburgh, even though they're ranked, right now, they had a pretty bad loss to Notre Dame. They lose a couple more. They're sort of sitting on the bubble too. So I think this is a compelling tournament just in that the ACC for so long was such like a powerhouse basketball conference, and only have 3 sort of sure things right now at this point in the season is really interesting for the conference. That being said, I like Virginia to be the third pick. We got Duke, we got Miami. I like Virginia. They've just been there before. That Tony Bennett's sort of a proven postseason winner. In a year that I guess makes no sense. I mean, just go with a team that at least looks like they've sort of done it before with a coach.
The only coach who's lost to a 16 seed as a number 1 seed, Tony Bennett.
Also that. But he also won the whole thing.
You guys are completely discounting North Carolina here, right? You're just like throwing them under the bus. Well, I tell you what, they're my best bet today. When we get to that, and I'm going to tell you why.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's move to the SEC, where we got another packed conference tournament. So Alabama, we talked about Brandon Miller last week. They've got their problems, but they're still in first. A lot of good teams here: Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State's on the bubble. I'll just open up the floor here. Anyone who wants to jump in, Who do y'all like in the SEC conference tournament? Who do you think is going to come out?
I'd just like to know if Miller's in jail yet.
No, he's not.
No.
No.
Okay, just want to make clear with that. No problem.
He's on the court, and he's he's one of the biggest reason why they're like 26-2 or whatever. Nate, who do you like in the SEC here?
I think there are so many good teams in the SEC, right? So, which is again sort of what we've been talking about, which is a really like weird kind of down year for the ACC, but it's like a weirdly sort of up year for the SEC in a lot of ways, which is fun. My gut is that I think that the easy play is Alabama, right? Alabama's played unbelievable basketball this season. They're sort of deservingly looking like they're going to be the number 1 overall seed based on the quality of their play, if not the quality of their integrity. But I think just to be contrarian, I think that Tennessee might be the play. They beat Alabama recently. The defense is just playing at like an unbelievably high level right now. Per Ken Pomeroy's rankings, which I use quite a bit in my handicapping, that they have the best defense in the country in terms of efficiency. So I lean Tennessee here, just because defense makes a big difference, particularly in one and done sort of situations at this point in the season. So I'll take Tennessee to get this one.
Interesting. I like Kentucky. I like the fact that Kentucky is trending in the right direction. They're winning basketball games now. Earlier in the season, they were struggling to put together a string of wins. They kept getting upset. I think people are counting them out. They've got a really veteran squad, which is weird for Kentucky. That's not usually the case. Against the spread, their numbers aren't great. So from a betting perspective, they're basically 50-50 on all the interesting numbers. They're 10-7 against the spread in conference games. So that's maybe the one edge you might see. They play well inside the conference as well, as at least they cover. But I like that they're a veteran squad, and I think they're probably hungry to prove themselves in a conference that's very competitive. I just don't think that Alabama, because they're going to be a number 1 seed in the tournament, regardless of where they are in the conference, like where they finish up in this tournament, they're still probably going to be a number 1 seed in the tournament of 64. So I don't think there's a lot of motivation there for Alabama to continue to win that. I think Kentucky or Tennessee, and you can't count out even like Auburn, which can always be dangerous in these situations. So there's our SEC.
You're giving square picks. When is it? Is it my turn now to actually give you some, good content rather than these square picks? Now I understand what square picks are, right? You guys were trying to teach me this during football. You and Nate are like the square pick duo of all time.
I think you just don't know enough about sports to know what square is in college basketball. So
yeah,
but
just
saying that
you guys got all the square picks, right?
Go ahead and tell us why Texas A&M is good or whatever.
Shame on you guys. Shame on you guys.
Wait a minute. How did you know I was? Wait a minute, Jack. We haven't talked about this. How did you know I was going to go to the Aggies? How on earth did you know that?
Because they aren't going to win the tournament. That's number 1. Number 2, we talked about Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Auburn, and then you came in hot with you guys are all stupid. So I figured the only other team left is Texas A&M. So go ahead and tell us why the Aggies can win the SEC tournament.
Oh, I love Texas A&M. This is gonna be the underdog special at SEC tournament. This team is fast. They got speed. They got depth. They play offense. They move the ball around. It's a veteran squad. I tell you the other thing. They're going to start off by beating Alabama today. Texas A&M. This is one of these teams. Once in a while in the SEC, you get one of these sneaky teams in there that kind of play a disruptive, not a Virginia Commonwealth University, Shaq disruptor chaos game, but they play a little bit of a disruptive game. So you're going to throw some of the offenses off, and they're playing with a reckless abandon. I tell you the other thing in this game today against Alabama, when we get to our picks, this thing's got upset written all over it. So I'm going to go with Texas A&M pulling the upset and winning the tournament in the SEC. You'll go your square bets.
Dad likes Texas A&M there. Let's go to the Big Ten, where we've got a lot of really good teams as well. Purdue, a lot of people think they might be the number one team in the country. I do not think that, but some people do. Indiana is really good. There's a lot of teams in the Big Ten that could come out on top here. I'll open up the floor again. I've got a couple thoughts that we can spend a little bit of time on the Big Ten, but I'll open it up first. Let's go with Nate. Nate, what do you think?
I don't know why
here?
you don't like Purdue. I don't know why you don't like. Every time I bet against Purdue, I just watch Zach Edey score like 400 points, and he's like an unstoppable behemoth. Nobody can defend him, and I just watch my bet just completely crumble under like the greatness of like his physical prowess. Like he's just unreal. And then like you're like texting us the other day, and you're like, and then you're texting us the other day, and you're like, Zach Edey sucks. He can't find like an open pass. And I don't.
That's not what I said.
That's never been my experience watching Purdue. My experience watching Purdue is like they're just like the greatest basketball team on earth. Like, and I don't know how. Like when they lose, I'm surprised.
Well, they lost to Indiana twice, so
they're
not the greatest. Yeah, and they lost to Maryland, and they almost lost to Wisconsin 2 nights ago when I was watching them. Listen, I didn't say Zach Edey sucks. He doesn't. He's an absolute beast physically. He's amazing. He hasn't been playing basketball more than 5 years. So some of that, there's some development there that's just going to take some time. He looks like Yao Ming. He's not as tall as Yao Ming, but he's just about as thick as Yao Ming. So there's some comps there. I just think with Edey, I don't think he's a great passer. And I watched Wisconsin double team him in the second half and basically force a bunch of turnovers. And I'm not saying that he can't find the open guy, but it took them a while to adjust. So at first they're trying to find the open guy on the perimeter. Well, the problem with that is they can't shoot threes. They're just not a very good perimeter shooting team. I don't care what the numbers say. I watched this team play. They don't shoot the three ball very well. If you double team Edey and you leave someone open on the perimeter and Purdue takes the open shot and they brick it, that's a win unless Edey gets a rebound, which of course can be the case. So what Purdue does to adjust is they drop, I think it's Frost. He's their other big man. They drop him down for a backdoor cut. So when the help comes and you've got 2 defenders on Edey trying to frustrate him, he can turn very quickly because he's bigger and he can just dump it off to the back door, or he can pass it back out on the perimeter and the perimeter can skip it to the back door. However, if you adjust again, and Wisconsin did this, and you bring a third guy down to cut off the back door, then you're left again with open guys in the perimeter who don't have a very good touch. So I don't like Purdue. Yes, Zach Edey's a beast. He's going to grab 20 rebounds every game. He's going to be incredible in the NBA, I think, once he develops. But I don't think his court presence or his feel for the court is like someone who's been playing for 15 years and just has a sixth sense about where everybody is and can dump it off. When you double team him, he looks lost, and then it takes him a while to get to the pass. And by that time, the opportunity is gone. So no, I don't like Purdue. I like Indiana. I think that Indiana's just
really,
yeah. I think they're a better team. I don't care what anyone says about Purdue. Purdue's not winning the tournament, and I'll eat so much crow if that happens. Like we're talking about the tournament of 64. There's no way. There's absolutely no way they get bounced in the Sweet 16 for sure. This team is going to run into trouble when they start playing teams that are smart, and that game plan against Edey. When you only have to game plan against one guy, it just makes it a lot easier. So that's why I like Indiana. But I mean, I respect your Purdue pick. I just think it's wrong.
Jack, when you said the Big Ten has a lot of good teams, there's another way to interpret that. There's a lot of mediocrity if there are a lot of good teams. Look, that conference is upside down right now, but that's not unusual for the Big Ten. The Big Ten, first of all, has a couple of issues here. They're called the Big Ten, but they got 14 teams, so they can't count past 10, apparently. The other thing I don't like about the Big Ten tournament is these teams that get double buys, for heaven's sakes. What the hell is that? And then you have these teams in the bottom half that are, traditionally some of your better teams like Wisconsin, like Michigan State, for heaven's sakes. Michigan is struggling. I think Michigan started the year in the top 10 and they can't find their way. So that's what I mean when I say you got a lot of mediocrity there. Indiana, sure. Excuse me. Northwestern, that I like to call Northwestern, although they did beat Purdue, I think. Stormed the court when they did. Matter of fact, I think Purdue leads the nation having the court stormed after a loss.
That's probably true.
I sat up there for 3 games in a row and watched the court being stormed. So that's always kind of fun. Purdue, yeah, you got to, if you're a betting person, yeah, put your money on Purdue, I guess. But Indiana might give them a run. And then watch for, the dark horse like Michigan State. Although they're driving Tom Izzo nuts, for heaven's sakes. They lost that 13-point lead the other night with a minute and a half to go. I think that was to Iowa. So, I mean, Illinois, blah. There's just a lot of mediocrity in that conference.
Well, don't forget about Rutgers.
I love the show.
Incredible defense.
Do not forget about Rutgers.
Rutgers is a top 5 defense. They play incredible defense.
You talk about me.
They're
and
like
Titans.
in the field
we
right now.
We
They're
were
like a 9
wondering
seed.
when you would weave Rutgers into this conversation, but I agree with Sheriff Clarke on one thing, and I don't know one thing. The one thing I agree with on, what the hell is a double bye? Like this is getting into like nonsense. Like a double bye? What you just sit 2 games out at the practice squad while everybody else is beating their brains out trying to win a conference? The hell's a double bye? I mean, this is almost as bad as the baseball rules, right? A double bye. But here's the thing: I like
you guys just want your cake and eat it too. You're like,
ridiculous.
Nobody wants to play conference tournaments. Better if they lose early. They get gassed out. Nobody plays good, and then you're like, the good team gets a double bye, and you're like, what the hell's that? You can't have both.
Who on this panel said you're better off getting? Was it Sheriff Clarke said you're better off getting beat in the tournament if you can get the NCAA bid to get more practice time? What? That's going to get you a lower seed. That doesn't double bye. That's like ridiculous. Look, we got all this stuff has got to stop. And you're right. 14 teams in a Big Ten. You can't do the math. I love Purdue to win the. Here's why. Okay, forget all these games against Indiana and what Jack says about backdoor cut or whatever. Forget all this stuff. Right? Go with the best team to win the Big Ten tournament. Purdue's the best team in the country when they're playing together. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Purdue is going to win this tournament with their double bye. What do you do with a double bye? You win one game, you win. You just go to the championship game. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
Like so stupid.
Well, Rutgers doesn't have a double bye, so we get to watch
Texas
Rutgers
A&M
basketball
doesn't have
early.
Rutgers right now.
Yeah, no, Texas A&M doesn't have a double bye either. So instead of, we could talk forever about these other conference tournaments. We didn't get to the Pac-12. We didn't get to the Big East, which is actually really interesting.
Is there still a Pac-12?
Yeah, UCLA is really good.
Big 12.
The Big 12. Maybe
Kansas.
we can kind of table that for next week. I think the Big East is really interesting. Xavier, Marquette, UConn's pretty good. So
Overrated. All of them. The conferences. This is you won't see Lou Carnesecca on the sidelines. You won't see John Thompson. You won't see Jim Calhoun. Some of the old ACC teams. Now you got Butler in there, for heaven's sake. You got Marquette. Marquette is way overrated. You're not the number 6 team in the country. The Big East is down this year, and it's a joke.
I kind of like Xavier. So I don't know about Marquette, but Xavier scores a lot of points. So Xavier Rutgers, that'd be a game I'd watch. You got a team that scores a lot of points.
On strength.
Oh, God,
Yeah, you got a lot of defense.
Do they stream those games or something? Do you get is there a stream service for that? RutgersStream.com or something? Like they're not even on TV. When are we going to get to picking some? Are we ever going to get to picking some winners on this show? It's called Godzilla Wins. When are we going to pick some winner? I need to blow some smoke. And I'm going to get so many winners starting today. You guys' heads are going to spin. When do we get to picking winners?
Go ahead and pick your winner.
You want me to start?
Tennessee Titans.
Yes, I want you to start.
Pick me. Okay. I love a couple games today, right? Let me give you my best bet. Texas A&M Aggies at home -1.5 over Alabama. Alabama just had a very tough game against Auburn, right? One of our Get Alive guys, Paul Dossie, says that he calls them pat down Bama, right? They just had a very tough game against Auburn. They're drained. They're exhausted. Texas A&M at home. Okay, Alabama number 1 or 2 T3 team in the country. Texas A&M 25. Why is Texas A&M 1.5 point favorite, right? The bookmakers are telling you who to bet in this game. Everybody's saying, Alabama get 1.5. I love Texas A&M at home here. -1.5. That's number one over Alabama. Let's get to Sheriff Clarke's favorite team, the Duke Blue Devils. Now they're at home. UNC's coming in. UNC's -3.5. Why are they -3.5? That makes no sense either, right? Duke's at home. Here's why. Like Sheriff Clarke said, win or lose, in or out, the Duke Blue Devils are getting into the NCAA dance. UNC, not so much. This is a desperate team on the bubble. They've got to win some games. They can't go in this thing losing. They're not going to get to the dance if they get beat and bounce in this game. I love hungry teams that are desperate against teams that are going to get in no matter what. So I love the Heels in this game, -3.5. Let's get to Kentucky at Arkansas. I love Arkansas -5. Why? Yeah, Kentucky's good. Arkansas's at home. They lost 2 in a row. They're not going to lose 3 in a row. Maybe they don't cover this game. Maybe they win by 3 or 4, but this is my other play. I love teams going into the tournament that are desperate. UNC, desperate. Arkansas, desperate. Texas A&M, desperate. I'm taking the desperate teams in the first games here. Those are my 3 picks. Arkansas -5, Texas A&M -1.5, UNC -3.5.
Okay. Lot to unpack there as well. Dad's had a lot of coffee this morning. I like Xavier Butler. I can't even get it out without laughing. I just think this is going to be a really good game. Man. Yeah, I'm really excited for this Xavier Butler game.
2 teams that were from the Horizon League, for heaven's sakes, a couple of years ago.
Well, look, Xavier's a top 5 offense. They rebound really well. I just like the over in this game. It's 142.5. I think, Xavier scores like 90 points a game, and Butler doesn't score more than 60, but I'm not sure it matters. Xavier's defense isn't that. Xavier ranks like in the 300s in defense, so I just kind of like the over there. Nate, really quickly, you got a pick for us. Then I want to circle back to something Patrick said earlier.
Yeah, I'll give out one pick. Just really quick, just to kind of go back to the SEC for a second. I like Auburn to beat Tennessee. They're a slight favorite. They're a 2-point favorite. I think Auburn probably wins this game. They get a little bit of revenge after losing a pretty close game to Tennessee earlier in the season in Knoxville. So I like Auburn to get the win there.
Okay, thanks. Patrick, we got about 4 minutes, and something you said earlier in the show, I just can't stop thinking about. So I'm going to ask you, instead of going to Godzilla Wins, Nate Loses. Nate loses all the time, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
Godzilla Wins, Nate Loses.
Yeah, in later shows. But earlier in our UFC segment,
should we change our website to Godzilla Wins, Nate Loses?
Maybe. Let me ask Patrick this though. Earlier in the UFC content, you talked about how you were involved with some sort of fight company that was shut down for kidnapping. Can you explain what that's about? And then we'll go to War Room.
I mean, I'd love to. But first off, Nate, is there an over/under on the AM arraignment for the Alabama team going in?
Yeah, maybe on DraftKings.
Yeah,
I'm just asking because that's a good bet for me.
Take your offshore book.
Entirely depends on what time the crime was committed last night with Alabama. So yeah, talking about there was a John Jones, Chael Sonnen fight, and if you guys know anything about Chael Sonnen, the guy he puts butts in the seats. He's probably the best ticket seller in the history of the UFC. He's phenomenal, better than Conor McGregor ever was, because everybody knew he was not going to win the fight, but he never stopped. He was just a beast. So a buddy of mine, and he's in the entertainment business, calls me up and says, "Hey, I've got these guys out of the country who they own a gambling website. They're making odds, and they're looking for a person like you to be able to diagnose a fight, help them handicap stuff, and they want to fly you into this fight in Jersey." Okay, fine. So I fly into Jersey, go to the fight. Everything's great. First class. Everything's freaking awesome. Just like if I were fighting, it was beautiful. Deal's going to go down. They send a contract to me. 4 days later, the people that own the business are arrested and indicted for kidnapping.
So that didn't pan out.
It didn't pan out. I think you guys are a little safer bet though.
Yeah.
So how did you get home when your employees are all in jail?
Well, I got back. And then it all just started coming out like 4 days later. It first started out as they were trying to get some money back. Then they kidnapped a guy's daughter. And I pretty much figured out we were finished with that deal before it began. But I got a trip out of it, so it was okay.
Yeah, a trip to Jersey.
Yeah, scenic trip to Jersey.
Yeah, there you go.
Obviously, you guys haven't been to Hoboken lately. Okay.
Well,
A trip to Hoboken, a trip to Jersey City and Bayonne. Why, that's a vacation if I ever heard of it.
It was horrible. It was Jersey City. It was a cesspool. It was
Hey guys, where'd you go on that short trip? Oh, I took a vacation in Bayonne, New Jersey.
Oh, it was
Good thing I didn't get kidnapped.
Yeah, look, New Brunswick's not that far away. You could have caught a Rutgers game at the rack there on the Raritan River. So, next time you're in Jersey, go down to New Brunswick and you can watch a game in the rack. Dad, you want to take us out?
Yeah, let's go to targettrading.co. You want to make some money and get involved. He's got the best trading company out there for futures trading. I got about 100 students in it. He gives you the numbers every day. This is very different. Nobody gives you numbers. It's kind of like Godzilla Wins. We put our record up. Patrick gives you the numbers. Go to targettrading.co, targettrading.co. Mom's in it. She loves it. Go to targettrading.co. You're good to go. Jack, I want to thank you. Happy birthday, by the way. Jack turned 33.
Happy birthday,
on
Jack.
Thursday. Happy birthday, Jack.
Thank you.
And we love you, and we love all you guys. And so thanks for being with us. We're here at CPAC. I got to get over to War Room, but I want to thank everybody for being with us. Sheriff Clarke, thank you. Good luck to Duke. Although today, my second, I got so many games I love today. But thanks everybody for being with us. Go to GodzillaWins.com. GodzillaWins.com. We'll be back next Saturday. I love this kind of 8:30 thing with boxing. I learned a lot today. Go to GodzillaWins.com. Get your picks there. Content coming every day. For my son, the editor of our site, Jack Fredericks, Nate Perry in Vegas, Sheriff Clarke, Patrick Assalone, out.